With Taj Chandigarh. The foundation feels delighted to host an eminent author, Ms. Kiran Manral, in conversation with Ms. Sharmita Bhinder. Prabha Khaitan Foundation enjoys a global identity in its dedicated effort to promote literature, art, and culture. The foundation works relentlessly to encourage and widen the reach and readership of English literature in India and abroad through boutique events and initiatives. Creating the finest literary experiences has always been the top priority of the foundation. As a Kolkata-based non-profit trust established by a literature and cultural aficionado, late Dr. Prabha Khaitan, the foundation is the custodian of literature, culture, social welfare, and women empowerment. For the last 4 decades, Prabha Khaitan Foundation has been actively encouraging literary and cultural experiences on the national and global frontiers. The Foundation's boutique initiatives are presented by patron Shree Cement Limited and supported by a vast network of distinguished associates, partners, collaborators, and Ehsaas Women of India. The hallmark of the organization is its earnest effort to create a cultural capital. In its mission to widen the cultural spectrum, Prabha Khaitan Foundation has undertaken unparalleled activities, right from promoting local food at destination venues to exchanging cross-city mementos. The foundation leaves no stone unturned to treat chief guests and audience to the taste of authentic local cuisine and appreciate handloom and cultural work of local artisans when it's time to show appreciation to the esteemed personalities. The anthem of Prabha Khaitan Foundation deserves a special mention here. The anthem portrays the beautiful philosophy of the nation, unity in diversity. Today's The Right Circle is indeed a special occasion, as we have an award-winning author who is already a celebrated social media influencer. The Right Circle is one of the prominent literary initiatives of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, encouraging and widening the reach and readership of English literature on the global map. The foundation is extremely delighted to host Kiran Manral ji in an informal and engaging interaction about her life and works with Sharmita Bhinder. It's my pleasure to welcome 2 wonderful personalities to an amazing session of The Right Circle at Chandigarh. Kiran Manral is an eminent author and novelist based in Mumbai. She was a journalist at the Asian Age and the Times of India. She wore many other hats as editor of Cosmopolitan, creative director of Karma Communications, Indian cultural lead and trend spotter at Gardner Iconoculture, US, and others. Her fiction books include The Reluctant Detective, Once Upon a Crush, All Aboard, Saving Maya, Missing, Presumed Dead, and The Face at the Window. Her other works include Karmic Kids, The Story of Parenting Nobody Told You, True Love Stories, A Boy's Guide to Growing Up in non-fiction and short stories in anthologies like Chicken Soup for the Soul, Boo, City of Screams, Best Asian Speculative Fiction 2018, Grandpa's Tales, Magical Women, and Have a Safe Journey. Her book, Saving Maya, was longlisted for the Saboteur Awards UK, supported by the Arts Council England, and The Face at the Window and Missing Presumed Dead were longlisted for Geo Mami Award to screen. The Face at the Window was shortlisted for the Singapore International Film Festival Word to Screen. In conversation with the author is Ms. Sharmita Bhinder, who is an Ehsaas woman of Chandigarh. Ms. Bhinder is the founder of Empower, NGO for Special Children, and is a writer, poet, and blogger. It's now time to start the session. Over to you, Sharmita.
Good evening and a warm welcome to everyone. It's great to have you all for a session present here almost after 2.5 years. So this is really special. And I'm very glad to welcome our amazing author. I'm very inspired by her, and I've told her that I must soon start writing, because 14 books is a very, very big feat. And we are very, very lucky to have such an accomplished author with us. So let me start with the book that we are discussing. how did you choose these 30 women? Was there a process that you shortlisted and then you re-shortlisted? How did you choose these women?
Thanks so much, Sharmita. Thanks firstly to Prabha Khaitan Foundation, to Ehsaas Women Rights Circle for inviting me. It's a great honor to be in your lovely city, and each time I come here, I'm totally taken aback by how clean, wonderful and huge it is. I come from Bombay, so you can imagine the contrast is immense. To come to your question, Sharmita, how did I shortlist these 30 women? There can never be a definitive list of 30 women who changed India. There are innumerable women who changed India. And it would be presumptuous of me to say these are the 30 women who changed India. The list, therefore, was much back and forth between me and my editor, my publishers. I sent in names, they sent in names, we debated, we discussed. What I was very clear about was that I had to have a mix of names. I had to have the known, the very well known, and the names that nobody knows about, but who should be known, and who deserve to be known, and whom I think young girls across India should know about, because they've fallen by the waysides of history. The time period we took was from the time India became an independent sovereign country, which is 1947, the women who were there at around that time, to contemporary times. So it's a broad spectrum of women, some of whom sadly are no longer with us, some of whom are still with us. And I tried to think I balanced out the very famous with the not so famous, and that was what I intended to do when I set out with the list.
Great. It was a very interesting list. There was a mix of women in politics. There were women who were in the field of sports, various fields. Did you have a particular favorite, like probably once you read more about them or researched more about them, or maybe took an interview, you found a lot more than what was presented or there in the public domain?
So many of them. I think it's impossible to say that none of them astounded me by how rich and deep their lives were. I think for me personally, I did not know much about M.S. Subbulakshmi.
Yes.
All I knew about her was that she was this doyen of Carnatic music. She sang at the UN Assembly, and she was the voice most Indian heard when they got up in the morning of a certain age, if you were in the 60s and 70s. She was the morning raga on the radio. So that's about all I knew of her. And when I began researching her life, to think this child of a Devdasi grew to the level where she was revered more than the male singers of Carnatic music. She was adored by the lay person who may not be a Carnatic music aficionado. And the fact that, prime ministers, people like Sarojini Naidu said, now she is the Nightingale of India, not me. That was like an immense, the story of the courage it took her to run away from her home at the age of 17, 18, to go to a city like Madras back then, to say that she would make a career as a singer. She did not want to be, what the life that, you expected a Devdasi to have. Immense courage in those times, immense courage. I think she was one of the ladies that really, the story that really inspired me, made me think that if she could have that kind of courage in her circumstances, what are we cribbing about?
Absolutely. So when you decided to write the book, was it that you were just looking for inspirational stories, or you wanted more than inspiration? Probably I saw that you have touched upon their lives, but a lot of things which we would take as scandals or the masala part of it was very beautifully put. It was just put as any normal incident, and then the reader could interpret it in their own way, right? Like, I have a mindset, and probably there are certain things which are correct for me or incorrect, or maybe some things which were considered a taboo 30-40 years ago today are not. They are like normal. So how did you choose what to put and what not to put, and was it a conscious choice to put it the way you did, just leave it open?
Absolutely, it's not my space or it's not my privilege to pass any judgment. And it's, when you're telling someone else's story, it's a huge responsibility because it's not your story to tell. It's their life, it's their circumstances, what they went through. And I'm no one to pass judgment. I think none of us are. What we can do is to look at it with an empathetic eye, to assume that, not to assume the worst of the person and to think that these are decisions they took under immensely strained circumstances or a situation where they were backed into a corner. And I was very clear, I was not writing this book for gossip. There's plenty of gossip around. Some of the personalities in my book, Rekha for instance, there's immense gossip around her, which I think is very unfair because she's one woman whom we know as Rekha. We know, there are very few people you know only by the first names. There's Prince, there's Madonna, there's Rekha. Everybody knows who they are. To achieve that kind of thing when you're pushed into filmdom at the age of 12 and 13, what a life she has led, how she struggled. We don't see that. We see the gossip about her and we hear the nasty rumors about her. I didn't want to make it a gossip fest. I want to present a life with the courage that it was led in. And I think if I have young girls reading it, I want them to admire that person and not to, focus on the salacious bits of their life.
What message did you want to give while writing the book? Because somewhere when I picked up the book and I just looked through the 30 women, most of us, we kind of know about them. And once I began to read it, I'm not a prolific reader. Something has to really intrigue me, and I finished the book in a few hours.
Wow.
So that interesting it was, because I think each one of us could relate to probably a certain portion of that woman's life. So did you think that it would become this powerful as that it has become? I don't know. Of course, it's a very popular book, but I'm hoping it will get more popular because it has come out to be very powerful.
Thank you so much. It's very kind of you to say that. My only aim while writing this was that I wanted to present the stories with empathy and to keep the writing easy for anyone across, from high school onwards to be able to read it. So, even the research, if you see, I've not put it very academically. There's always a temptation to make something very academic, especially when you're writing about artists like, say, Amrita Shergill or Mashweta Devi. There's this entire thing that you have to dissect their work and you have to present, what the critics say about them, but I've stayed out of that because I wanted to focus on their lives. My aim when I was writing this was to have a book that I could give to a younger girl and say, these are the lives you should be reading about. These are the lives that should inspire you, and if they can do it, you can do it too. So even if one girl feels that, why am I feeling held by my circumstances? I can do what I want to do too. I think my job is done, and this book has been well received. It's gone into schools, it's gone into libraries. It went into reprint in its first month itself, so I suppose people are liking it.
Yeah, absolutely. While reading the book, I realized that most of the women had fabulous careers. Wherever they laid their steps, they were able to reach the top. But unfortunately, a lot of them had failed relationships and traumatic relationships. And very sadly, they lacked support, maybe social support, maybe from the spouses. I think the only place I felt happy was Mary Com's husband.
Even Naina Lal's husband and Kiran Manral's
husbands. But the fact that these women were not celebrated by their families or the men in their life, it touched me a little. And why do you think it is like that?
So when I was interviewing Sonal Mansingh ji, there was a very poignant moment when she told me, Kiran, I've done it all alone. All the other people have their families helping them, documenting their work, planning their performances for them, helping them with the nitty-gritty, but I've done it on my own. And she was married to Lalit Mansingh, who was a very powerful bureaucrat. And she chose not to continue with that marriage for whatever personal reasons. I haven't got into that in the book.
Absolutely.
She chose dance. But the thing is, as she told me, when you have a passion, it's very difficult to reconcile the passion with family because family always expects to be first. So it's very rare to find a partner who will allow you to outshine him. I think that's what happens. Or to find a partner who is not scared of being known as that person's partner, as a woman's partner, this so-and-so's husband. And or when you have accomplished women who are very doing well for themselves, you very often find men who come into their lives who take advantage of them, as we've seen with countless incidents in Bollywood too.
Absolutely.
Why do these women not have good relationships? I think a relationship is always a gamble for everyone. But I don't think the men are capable. I'm sorry, apologies to the men in the room. Not all men, of course. But I
somehow we maximum women.
But it's a rare man who is, secure enough, confident enough to let the woman outshine him. And that is, I think, where most of these women had trouble. Mahashweta Devi,
Yes.
back in that day and age, she had the courage to say, she got out of a marriage, she left a child behind. And she says very candidly, I don't know what I was missing, whether it was physical satisfaction or whether it was emotional satisfaction. I don't know what I was missing. I was missing something and I walked out of marriage. At that day and age, in that time to say this and to walk out of marriage, I think women who will not be constrained are women who will achieve. And these are women who achieve because they would not be constrained. And that is difficult for most women.
So that's why probably this question came to me, and I want conversations around this, and I want this conversation where men are around, that it is high time that women lead a guilt-free life. Whenever we do anything out of the home domain, it is with tremendous amount of guilt. The food has not been done, the house is not clean. With that, women achieve what? If they had a free mindset, I feel, So, unfortunately, with this book, that's what I felt that even with this remarkable achievement, they lost out on love, they lost out on partnership, and I think they lost out on their children also. Because probably if they left the marriage and moved out, the children were taken care by whoever did not present the women, or maybe presented the women who took the courage to take their priorities and maybe not the child for whatever reason. So that was something that troubled me.
Having said that, you have the wonderful example of Mary Com's husband.
Yes, that's what I mentioned. Yes.
Who tells her you have to go to the World Cup and you have to fight your bout. And her son was going through a congenital heart surgery at that point.
And that too here in PGI.
Yes. And he said, you don't worry, go fight your bout. I am there with your child. He gave up his career as a lawyer to take care of their 3 children. It's a rare man who can do that.
Really, really. Absolutely, I agree. Do you have any woman as a personal favorite or somebody you somewhere can identify with?
Very honestly, Anita Desai. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know why. As a writer, Anita Desai's writing career was between the time her children went to school and came back. And that's how my life has been as a writer. I write in the middle of domesticity. I had full-time jobs, I had freelance jobs, but my writing was always the back burner. So whatever books I've written in the 14 years, it is between juggling assignments, managing a house, raising a child, being perfect. I'm not the perfect wife and bahu, but trying hard to be the perfect wife and bahu. So when Anita Desai said that her children didn't realize for the longest time that she had written books, immediately I could identify with it. Because my son too,
In a way it's good.
it's like, so what?
So you are a mother for him.
So Anita Desai definitely was someone I really identified with. And it's only now, she says, when she moved out of India, when her children were grown up, that she called herself a writer. till then it was always writing was something she was doing on the side. And this is a lady who's won the Booker.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I'm like, who am I?
So there were very many women from different eras, because the book, as you said, from 1947 till present date, so you had women like Sushma Swaraj, Sheila Dikshit, Fatima Bibi, Mahashweta Devi, Amrita Shergill, Amrita Pritam, and the list goes on. Lata Mangeshkar ji. Who out of them do you think was really able to change mindsets in their sphere? Was there somebody very I mean, everyone is superbly powerful, but like I would have one or two people whose life was...
Through their work, I would say Amrita Pritam and Mahashweta Devi, because of what they wrote and the women-centric stories they told.
Yeah.
And you know, that reaches out to much more people than the actual lives themselves, because the kind of powerful storytelling was incredible. Another lady who has really caused a lot of change in the society she lives in is Chavi Rajawat, the Sarpanch of Soda, she was a Sarpanch of Soda, a small village in Rajasthan. After she became Sarpanch of Soda, many younger girls chose to get into village politics. If she could do it, then we can too. I think she sort of set an example that was incredible for a patriarchal society like Rajasthan.
A lot of these women were physically hurt also during the process. Chavi's family was attacked, she was attacked. And how do you see that?
So there is either physical assault or there is verbal assault and mudslinging like Rekha has gone through after her husband committed suicide. There's all sorts of innuendo, there's everything. I think the idea of a woman coming into her own and being powerful threatens a lot of people. I wouldn't say just men, it just threatens society at large, because you're not going to be confined by what is expected of you to be. The boundaries are not there, you're not considering boundaries. So the physical assaults are the dangerous ones, of course. The verbal and the mental assaults are also dangerous. Forget the women who are great achievers. I'm on the social media, on all the platforms. If you have an opinion on this, on social media today, it's like the short skirt of the internet.
You're not well received.
You get all kinds of unwelcome attention and trolling. So basically, opinions from a woman are very, very, very dangerous.
Absolutely. So would you choose to write about 30 men who changed India?
There are enough and more stories about men who changed India. They are in our textbooks, they are in our books, and they are all valorous, huge tomes written to each one of them. They've got enough writing on them. I think they can do their own writing.
Okay. I mean, most of the stories were very powerful, but they were very happy stories also of great, amazing achievement. So is any particular achievement of any woman important?
I really like the stories of women who are in positions of power where they can do things to change things for other women. That is Sushma Swaraj, Sheila Dikshit. They were in political positions where just the fact that you have a female chief minister, just the fact, of course we had a female prime minister, but that was dynasty and whatever. So we didn't even get into Indira Gandhi because she's quite a controversial figure.
Absolutely.
So these were women who came from nowhere. They were not into political circles. Of course, Sheila Dikshit came from a political family. She was married into a political family. But the fact that women were in such powerful positions, I think, is very inspiring for other girls and young women. Fatima Bibi, the first female judge in the Supreme Court, a Muslim woman wearing always with a headscarf and a head covered. So powerful. And there is all sorts of talk that she got the position because of the Shahbanu case at that point, and she was a token figurine. But the fact that she was there and she made it to the Supreme Court, it took us so long to get more women into the Supreme Court after her.
Yes,
she's a story that we don't really talk about, and it's difficult to find information about her. But I think she was a story that had to be told.
Yes, that was very interesting. So let's talk about your life journey in the sense that you started off as a journalist and then freelanced a lot, and then how did writing come to you?
So writing is always there, Sharmita.
Of course, because you were a journalist.
I was a journalist, and I think if you're a writer, you're a storyteller, you start from your childhood where you write very bad stories in notebooks. And I think my mother has, my mother can probably blackmail me sometime with those miserable stories sometime if she wants to get something out of me. So I was a journalist, of course. I was with the Times of India, I was with the Asian Age, the India Today group. After that, I went into advertising for a while, then I decided to have my baby, and I fell out of the formal workforce for a bit. I continued working. I set up a content supply firm at the first .com boom. This was when Tata, Nova, Satyam, Infotech, not right now. This was early 2000s. Of course, the entire content .com boom went bust then, so we folded up. Went back into freelance working. I did market research, I did advertising, I did all sorts of things. I did edited web portals. And each time, every time a birthday came up, Sharmita, my mother would hold me to that one statement I made at some misguided point in my youth, saying I will write a book one day. When are you writing your book? I'm very busy and important right now. I'm at Times of India, I don't have time to write a book. I'm at Cosmopolitan, I don't have time to write a book. I'm having a baby, I don't have time to write a book. That went on until one fine day she said, baby, you're going to turn 40 next month, where is your book? And that was like a hard reality check for me. So, okay, it's high time, I have no excuses, I've run out of excuses. So, mom was basically like, I don't know, we are all of a certain generation, if you remember Vikram or Vetal. Vetal on the back. So, mom was like that Vetal on the back, where is your book, where is your book? So, I thought to myself, I'll write something, I'll send it off, it will get rejected by everyone. Then I'll tell her I tried, nobody wants it, and she'll, tu bola main chala, will happen. But the editor I sent it to liked it, and she wanted it, and it got published, and that's how I became a writer. That's how my books came.
So then, how come there was a flood of books after that?
There's a saying in Hindi, na? Sher ne khoon chak liya. So I think, luckily or unluckily, I began very late. My first book came out when I was 41. So, and there was, I think, these years of not writing which just emerged all together. And it seems like a lot when I think about it. It's 11 years and 14 books, but it's some books are like 4 years in the writing, some books are few months in the writing, so it's a very spectrum of.
Right. So again, any favorite book of yours and why? Everybody has a pet project that they have done, whether it's a quick baby or a late baby, whatever.
So the first book is always precious.
Yeah.
So the Reluctant Detective sort of came about. I began writing blogs actually when I was a mom, because itchy fingers, you're a writer, you're stuck nursing the baby and watching fashion TV and thinking, when will I be that size again? So the blog sort of chronicled my early days of raising my son. It became very popular, it became one of the top blogs of India. I got a readership and people were kind enough to egg me on and say, you should write a book. And so that voice of the Reluctant Detective is the same voice of Karmic Kids. It's very funny, very humorous. Reviewers have even called me the Bombeck of Bombay, because it's parenting and that's for Karmic Kids. The Reluctant Detective was a bit of the protagonist is me, as they say, your first book, you have to get the autobiographical elements out, then you can go out to write the rest of it. But after the Reluctant Detective, I would say The Face of the Window. It's literary noir. It is a little scary, let me warn those who are terrified of scary stuff. But it was a brave leap for me from funny, chick-lit, humor, romance to write literary noir. And since then I've written 3-4 other. One is under process, 3 are published. So that's also a genre that I enjoyed, and this was my first venture into that, The Face of the Window.
Right. So are you in the process of writing any other book? What is going on? What should we look forward to?
One's always writing. One never knows what will turn out how, and whether it would be, you write a lot, but not everything is meant for publishing. And there is a book that has been accepted by my publishers, but the only trouble is it is 40,000 words and I have to cut it to 80,000 words. So that is in process. That is also literary noir in the lines of the face of the window, missing, presumed dead, and the latest, which is More Things in Heaven and Earth, which was released just before Rising. Same surreal, spooky, noir kind of a book. And hopefully some more non-fiction should also be coming your way. Let's see how it goes.
So are any of the books being turned into movies or serials on Netflix or something like that? Is that in your mind?
So some deals are being signed and some
So
negotiations are all, but I cannot give anything
No,
out.
I'm just wanting you to talk about it. Is there something on the line or in the process?
So deals have been signed,
Okay, great.
and I'll believe it until when it comes on screen, because the deals are signed and then you wait and then they're finding things and setting up everything and then it falls through. So I don't know, when it materializes, I think I'll be ready to talk about it. Right now it's fingers crossed.
Super. So tell me something, any word or anything that describes you as a person. I mean, what we've read about you or what we hear about you and who you are really. There's always, some things that aren't very public. So anything that describes you.
What describes me?
That's a tough one, actually. That's a very tough one. How do I describe myself? I should say something glowing and flattering, and no, but I'm very lazy.
No, I love the honesty.
Is there some way to do something quicker and faster and I'll get it done?
So I'll get back to the book again. There are a few more questions. You talked about two very famous women, Naina Lal Kidwai and who's the other one?
Kiran Manral.
Yeah, Kiran Manral. I think you were able to interview them as well. So some of the people you were not able to interview, and that surprised me. That why weren't they keen to? So you connected with everybody, and then you gave them an option to write.
This book was written during COVID times.
Right.
And I don't think everyone was in a mind space to,
Talk about themselves.
to meet, or, there was chaos happening all around. All my interviews were done telephonically or email or over Skype. So even Menka Guruswamy, Naina Lal Kidwai, Kiran Manral, Mary Com, Sonal Mansingh, these are all interviews that I did, but none happened face to face. The rest I reached out to, some replied saying they would be keen, but you kept chasing up. After a point, it is like, apni bhi koi izzat hai. So
Sometimes it's not meant or the time.
So there's enough material, and I was not commissioned for interviews. I was commissioned to do biographical essays on them.
Right.
So I went ahead with the secondary research material and I put them together. Of course, with due respect and empathy to their stories. Those who were kind enough to give me interviews, I went ahead with interviews.
So what was amazing about these two women? I was pretty amazed to read about their journeys.
So Naina Lal Kidwai was the first Indian woman at Harvard. And she set up a retail banking division when she was pregnant. She took over ANZ Grindlays and she was negotiating and brokering high pressure deals, running a marriage, raising a child, doing all the things. And she said something very interesting. She said that there are three balls that you have to juggle. One is yourself, one is your home, one is your career. So for me, I'm okay if I drop the ball that is me, but the other two balls, that is home and career, I cannot drop. And I realized, even at her level, home and career occupy equal importance, but she puts herself last.
Absolutely. And I think what I read was, she said the home and the career are glass balls, which
balls.
you have to balance very carefully. They can't shatter. And with me, I'm a rubber ball. I can fall down and bounce back. So that was like something really struck. Yeah, and about yes.
Kiran Mazumdar Shaw what an inspiration, what a story. I mean, the first billionaire woman, self-made billionaire female in India. Of course, now we have Falguni Nayar, but back then she was the first one. To think that her career came about through happenstance. She wanted to become a doctor. She didn't get the requisite marks to get into medical college. She thought her father would buy her a seat, like all parents do. Her father said, nothing doing. If you didn't get the marks, I'm not buying you a seat. You find something else to do. And he was a brewmaster at UB Group. So he said, why don't you take up brewing? Because he was familiar with the industry. And when she got into college in Australia because her marks were good. She was the only woman in class even there in Australia.
Australia as well.
So it was such a male-dominated industry, it still is. And the fact is, when she came back after getting her qualifications from there, she couldn't find a job in India because she was a woman. And she went to Scotland and all that happened. Luck, I've realized that luck plays such an important role.
Yeah,
in
if she hadn't gone to Scotland, then she wouldn't have been the Biocom founder who encouraged her. And she started her business with 10,000 rupees. So I was like, oh my God, we keep waiting for opportunities, we just keep waiting for the right time, or we keep crying that the life is not conducive. But I think the people who just take a leap and just keep at it for years, they are the ones who achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Just go out and grab the opportunities. Shakespeare said, there comes in a tide in the fortunes of man. When taken, you have to take the tide when it comes, otherwise it goes by and you get left behind.
Absolutely. Another person that I found very interesting was Menaka Guruswamy. And we must talk about her. So she was the one who helped in getting the Article 377 removed.
So Menaka has...
Did you get an interview with her?
Yes,
I read that.
there's an interview with Menaka, and she was among the earliest batches of the National School of Law in Bangalore. And back then, it was newly set up and people were not very sure about whether they should go and do that full, or complete their degree and then go in for law as was traditional. But she was lucky enough to have parents who encouraged her. And what I find admirable about Menaka is that she takes on cases that people would be afraid to touch. And she does it with the courage of a conviction. If she will fight against, she will do cases that are not so savory, because she is a professional lawyer, but she will also do cases for a conscience, because that's what she believes in, and she's very clear about it. When she fought for Article 370 to be revoked, a very touching moment was when she was standing in front of the judge, and somebody said that we don't know people like that, and that was a moment of revelation for her, that even her own colleagues did not realize that she was gay. That gaydom had been so invisibilized to them, and they did not even consider them part of the mainstream, while she was right there in the courtroom. So I think she's a very, very brave woman, and of course now she's come out. At that point she had not come out. Now she and Arundhati have come out as a couple, and they both fought for 370 together.
Yeah. So I found it so profound that you were able to speak about something that you were probably believing in and fighting, but probably it wasn't public knowledge. But because you wanted to prove a point that that people with transgenders and gays and lesbians and the bisexuals and the whole category, they are there in the whole community and they are like all of you. So just to be able to say that, I think it was one of the bravest things I have read. So thank you for adding her. Another lady I was very, very impressed with was Tessie Thomas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this little young girl in a village in Kerala goes on a school picnic to a place called Thumba, which is a rocket firing launchpad place, and she sees the rockets and it stays with her. When she studies, she goes and she's very good at studies, she goes into engineering, she takes up radar, which is an unconventional elective. From there she goes to study more about missile technology. She gets lucky enough that Dr. APJ Kalam takes her under his wing, and she ends up lecturing the scientists at ISRO. But she also had a choice to go into the IAS. She chooses not to. She decides to go because the interview and the exams or something were on the same day. that was the risk of faith that she took. IAS was secure, guaranteed. This was, God knows what will happen. But she is there, and she is like the Messiah woman of India today. A position that we don't really know, and the Agni, all the Agnis are her baby.
Yeah. She's called the Agni woman, not the Agni Putri or something.
Agni Putri.
Yeah. I think APJ will come now. Yeah. You saying something? So this is where, I mean, all the stories were very formidable, very interesting. I mean, I wish I had 1 or 2 more hours to kind of talk about. So I think the last person we'll discuss would be, of course, I would want to talk about Shakuntala Deviji also, and Shell, your teacher. Again, very profound, both the women. So any little light that you could shed about.
The most interesting thing is that Shakuntala Devi was somebody who had intrigued me as a child because I was miserable at maths. Miserable, I mean.
Same here.
I mean, you know,
I must tell you this, my teacher came running and hugged me. So there was another parent, the parent said 100 out of 100. They said, no, jitne aaye, 100 se bhi zyada hai. So he was very curious, kitne aaye? So he said, 57 aaye, but you will not believe she hasn't cleared anything from 9th till 10th. So 57 is more than 100. So the parent was also pretty aghast, how does somebody get a hug from 57? So I closed my maths book. I haven't opened. Luckily, both my boys are great, so I didn't have to ever open maths again.
you know, the biggest trauma in life for me was revisiting maths after when my son was in school. So I did such a bad job that he continues to be as bad as me, but anyway. So Shakuntala Devi would come on our TV screens and we would watch her, and she would do these huge calculations, and she would be in this nicely draped sari with a little sleeveless blouses, and you know, so full of life and wit and sparkly. I would be intrigued by her. I haven't seen the movie, to be honest. I have not seen the movie when I've written this. But researching about her life, you realize that this child had been put on display for her abilities since she was a child.
3 years, I guess.
Yes, from the time she was 3 years, she was paraded like a performing monkey everywhere. And despite that, and despite that trauma, she grew up to be such a wonderful, animated, fun-loving individual. It's commendable that she didn't sink into any kind of, and very often people with such uncommon mental ability are a little different. They are on the spectrum. So their communication and their social interaction is not. I mean, we've all seen Rain Man and Dustin, and we know about autism and things like that. But she was perfectly fine, and yet she had this gigantic brain computing abilities where she used numbers like you use language.
Right. And she didn't go to school.
She didn't go to school, she was self-taught.
She was self-taught. So,
And that was wonderful. She was a teacher. I was very, very upset and angry when she was not given the position again.
right.
But there was a lesson to learn from that, because she was so dignified about it that the party policy is that nobody repeats the ministry they are given, and it has to be given to someone else. And there was such grace in her acceptance that it was a lesson to me that don't hold on to stuff. If she has done such commendable work and she can give it up without even, I mean, personally we don't know, she must have been cursing, but in public at least she was very graceful about it. I think that was a lesson.
So she was the health minister of
Kerala
during the
coronavirus.
Yeah. So and she did exemplary work. We all know that. So I would now like to invite Manisha to give the thank you note. And thank you. It was an amazing conversation.
Thank you
and
so
I had
much.
a great time reading, and I'm really good. You really inspired me. So 6 months down the line, I should have some.
I look forward to reading that. Thank you for all the insightful questions.
People. So based on whatever research or interviews you did, so like people often, I mean, they're a whole package. They're good things, they're bad things, and obviously people present their positive side. So did you come across something like that in your writing, or a controversial thing where you were, you had your own ideas and you got some new ideas, and how did you balance it out with the subjective and objectivity of the whole thing?
It's a very interesting question, and please call me Kiran. Ma'am makes me feel like I'm my mom. How did I balance it out? I think I was very clear that I'm not here to pass judgment on whatever they are. I'm not going to look at, I mean, they're wonderful women, but some of them can be difficult to deal with. And you may not personally like them, but you admire them for the work they've done, and which is what I was going to chronicle. And that had to be my focus had to be that their work and their lives and their career. And I was not going to pass judgment on anything. I think I discussed it with Sharmita also yesterday. That my aim is I'm not here to pass judgment. I'm here to just present the facts as they are, and to let the reader interpret it as he or she wishes. And I did not want to do anything or write anything that would take away from the magnificence of their achievements. So that was the sole thing that I wanted to keep foremost while I was writing. The focus had to be on their work. My gaze had to be empathetic and non-judgmental. That was all. I think I tried, and I hope I've achieved
I
that.
agree with that. You just let it open for the viewer to, the reader to interpret it.
We still have time for some more questions if anyone is interested.
I just have a small question. Initially, you said that when you were selecting these 30 women, you suggested some names and your editor suggested some names. Was there some name which you really wanted to be in and your editor refused and you regret that you could not put it? And vice versa also, that you didn't want that particular name which your editor suggested, but then at the end of the day when a decision was taken, you added that name?
Lots of them, but I'm not going to tell you.
No, I just wanted that, did it happen here?
Of course, because we're all very opinionated people. So, so some women, while they've got wonderful achievements, I personally might have been a little conflicted about them. But yes, they do deserve to be in the book.
Exactly.
But some women I thought should be in the book, but they felt, my editors and publishers felt that they were too controversial or whatever, so let's stay away from
And do
it.
you have that regret in you?
No, not at all.
No.
I'm hoping there'll be another edition where I'll convince them to put them in.
Yeah, that is it. That's being very optimistic. We'll look forward to that.
Is there anyone else who's interested in any questions? If not, then I would personally like to say from the PKF Foundation, thanks so much to Kiran Manral and to Sharmita Binder for making this a wonderful event today. And I mean, not just that, it is an author who comes out and speak loudly about these strong women of India. I mean, there should be more females, more women like you who could write about these women of India. I think that really inspires a lot of other women and even especially the young crowd. And I feel that, you know, that struggle, that war they have had during all these years, especially long back when it was not such a privileged society and we didn't have the, you know, full backup of families and extended families and, you know, husbands. So this is definitely something I feel is an eye-opener, especially for the youngsters who can learn from this and, you know, probably do better achievements. And we have more women, you know, working at leadership positions in India and leading India, you know, in the way we would like it to lead. And it really, I am so inspired by that you have written about them and taken it up. So thanks so much for that. And I cannot express enough gratitude to the Sri Cement Foundation for hosting this event along with Taj. Thank you so much for it. And I just want to say, if I could have Shahida ma'am to facilitate our author, Ms. Kiran Manral, and of course also Ms. Sharmita Binder. Thank you so much.
Excuse me.
Should I be very cheap and hold my book? Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for a lovely session. And before you all go, I would also like to request you to come and have a copy of your own book signed by Miss Kiran Manral. Thank you.